Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Monday, the start of a new week. Yes, it is. Just getting ready. I'm having some tea here. Gonna get some steaks going tonight. Have some nice, delicious. I always buy shell steaks. Right now they're completely frozen, so I have to defrost them. These are two steaks. I like them on the thin side. I'm having a teeth problem, so. You know, I just like my steaks that way, and they're delicious, the shell steaks, they really are. So it's Monday. Yesterday was Sunday, didn't really do much, threw in a few loads of wash, but the main thing for me is that I sat here, and you know, things talking about Disney, I do think about things, but I've been thinking about the older days a lot. And the older days, as far as what it used to be like, what we knew, what my husband and I knew to enjoy. And I pulled out a slew load of videos. Now, years ago, my husband and I, we had a DVD recorder. We had taken all our VHS tapes and transferred them all onto DVD, you know. Do I recommend that? It's cute for some, it's cute for to a certain point. I say hang on to the VHS tapes, because you never know, like sometimes the disc could get old, sometimes the disc isn't really that readable anymore in the machines, especially maybe like today's machines as the machines go on. Discs, you know, the DVD discs, you know, sometimes they do age, depending on how many times you use them. We don't use these that much. They're mostly stored away, and then every so often I'll get the bug, like I did yesterday, and I pulled out all of them. I have a variety of tapes. Now, you have the old VHS tape, we know that, and I still have most of my home movies, my personal home movies on VHS. Did I transfer them? I think I did, but I don't know what I did with the disc. All right, fine. My husband always had his, it's a VHS machine. It's an 8mm VHS machine. My husband actually started out years ago with the original video camera. Imagine vlogging with this now in the parks. The original video camera that you had to take two sections of it. You had to take, the VCR came in half, and then you had to take the video camera. And the video camera had to have a wire. Sometimes you would actually have a case for the VHS machine part. So you would have to lug the camera on your shoulder and carry the VHS machine. It was insane. We used to do this years ago. Okay, that was an 80s thing. Okay. My husband with his band back then from the 80s and maybe the very, very, very beginning of the 90s, but I was watching those videos too last night, and because my husband had his band, and I remember those days too. It's just a lot of memories coming up. But for the Disney ones, then we wound up with 1994, which was our first trip to Disney. I backtracked that. Now, as I was telling you guys the story that my husband's video camera basically broke right in the middle of Splash Mountain. I think it was our second time being on Splash Mountain. The first time we never filmed it, and I would hear myself on the video because I did, and you know, this is our second time going on Splash Mountain, and because of that, we're going to film it. And we did, and that's when the camera, that was the last part that the camera filmed. Okay, but the rest of the trip, our first trip to Disney, 94, the rest of the trip, I don't even have that VHS tape anymore, unless this is it right here, unless I'm looking at it, and I don't even know if this is it. It's not even marked. It probably is. I have no idea. Story about that is that when we were on the ride, my husband went to switch batteries. Now, I had noticed, and I have to tell him this tonight when he comes home, I noticed that during Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, the camera started going at that point, and I don't know if he noticed it. What we found out, to make that long story even shorter, I took it to the repairman. The tape was still in the machine. We could not remove the tape out of the machine. The mechanics were totally shot out of that thing. The two recording heads came loose, and it was very, very, very expensive, even though the camera was under warranty at that time to fix. They refused to fix it. A friend of my husband's went to try and remove, and I told him not to do this. He tried to remove the tape out of the machine and kind of jimmied the door. Now the company says we cannot honor that because the camera was tampered with. So, you know, because of that reason, camera was not old. I think it was not even a year old. Maybe a little bit more than a year, because I was watching also a part of a Christmas video, and that was the camera that we shot the Christmas with, and that was before the trip. So we had that camera a while. So what I did was, he handed me off the guy. He says, "You take it. I don't want it." I says, "Oh, good. No, I can't get the tape out either." You think the repairman would have at least got the tape out of the machine, but they didn't. I had in my area where I lived, because it's way before I was married, in my area where I lived, a small mom and pop repair store. So I took the camera there. They got the tape out, and I think this is the tape. I mean, we didn't even mark it. This is a 8mm VHS tape. I don't know if you guys even remember this, but this was the early 90s. And what it is that the guy says, "Listen, it is, I'm going to look it over." I says, "Okay," because I want a second opinion. Went back to him 2 days later. He says the recording heads. He says if I was to replace this, I would have to replace the whole inside board, because the recording heads are actually attached. So he showed me. He stood there and he showed me. He says, "Now, what do you want to do with the camera?" I says, "Well, how much would it be to fix?" He was at least talking $300. I says, "You know what? Can't do it." He says, "Okay, I'll tell you what." He says, "It may be a crappy thing to do. You're never going to use the camera again. If you sell it to me for parts, I'll buy the camera off of you." Camera was a lot of money back then, but at this point, you know, it was kind of being desperate. My husband, now husband, back then fiance, handed me the camera. He says, "You do what you want with it." So now that camera is now mine. So I had the decision. I says, "Well, how much are you willing to give?" He gave me $250. I says, "You know what? It's $250 more than what I had when I walked in this store." I said, "I'm going to take the $250. He says, "All right." He says, this camera will never be fixed." He says, "I will take this camera apart." He says, "Now, as you can see, the recording heads are no good." He says, "So just so that you know, I can't do anything with the recording and the inside board." Okay, now video cameras are mostly circuit boards, because you don't have that anymore. They're all digital today, as you know. My video camera. Now, my husband purchased a video camera for me for Christmas 1990. Was it 94? It was 95. I think it was 95. He purchased for me a video camera of my own for Christmas. And those tapes took VHS-C tapes. And I don't have the adapter here. I know I have the adapter inside. It's probably in the closet. These are what the VHS-C tapes look like. They are more fatter. Okay? They're more fatter. And what it is that this part here, now you can't just shove this into a machine. You can't shove this into a machine. Years ago, the camera would have to be hooked to the TV set. So this came with a special adapter. It looked like a regular VHS tape. It's an empty case VHS tape. And this tape clicks inside that big VHS tape, and that whole thing goes into the machine. I thought this was the coolest thing, because I didn't have to hook the camera up to the TV set. I didn't have to do it. I just have to take the tape out, put it into my machine. It was awesome. Many years. I had this camera for 14 years, and it finally went on me. It wasn't that it really went on me. It just started to get old, and there was a situation with it to where it would be a Disney thing that I wanted to film the parade and the fireworks. My husband says, "Okay," because we were at the Contemporary then, and my husband said, I think that was our honeymoon. I think this was our honeymoon, but this camera was actually saved during that trip. Not so much my husband in 94 for his. I went on Splash Mountain, and it always seems like there seems to be a problem with the Splash Mountain that we always, because the reason why my husband's camera went and then this one, it kind of decayed the camera for the following few years. I did notice that there were certain things that weren't going right. The quality of the videos, the quality, it was basically from the inside of the camera. Okay, fine. I took my camera Did not have the camera case with me. Put the camera in on my shoulder because I had a strap. And it was an RCA camera, by the way. I loved RCA back then. And I put the camera on my strap, the strap on my shoulder, but I had a plastic bag, a Disney World bag. And I put the camera in the bag and I wrapped the bag up. Just in case the camera, would get wet or something. I was more dramatic back then with these things because I didn't want my camera ruined, being that I'd seen my husband with his situation a few years before. I said, okay, we went on Splash Mountain. Going into the front car, we got doused with water. We were saturated. I don't know what was it. Sometimes people don't get wet, sometimes you do. I have no idea. Okay, got off the ride. Took the camera, unstrapped it from my shoulder, took the camera out of the bag. I don't know if the bag had a leak in it. The bag was saturated. I said, okay, well, it's only the outside of the bag. The whole camera on the inside body was all wet. I went, uh-oh. So my husband, back then fiance, well, back then actually husband, 1998, he went and got me napkins and I'm drying the camera off. I go to take a shots, let me try it. I turned it on, it made this, and I went, oh God, and I'm panicking. Now my husband had a new video camera. He had it back at the room because he says, if you're going to film it, I'm not going to film it. The times he filmed something, I didn't film anything. It just went like that. I'm now sitting right in front of the castle on the curb, crying. I go to lift the camera. I'm trying to film something. I go to play it back. There's all snow. What the hell happened with this camera? So I noticed, my husband then says, open the door. So I opened the door. It was kind of musty in there. Now, it doesn't have to be from the ride itself. It was actually humidity. Gets inside the camera. If you ever notice, when you take your camera out in the morning to leave your resorts, you do have to let it, go back to the way it was because, everything's all foggy. It's because of the humidity. Okay, this was a humidity issue. My husband says, no problem. I'm crying hysterical. I wanted to get the fireworks and then I wanted to film it myself with my own camera. He says, I get it. He goes, I get it. But what I'm going to do, he says, I'm going to bring your camera back to the room because we were in walking distance. Thank God for the Contemporary. It was our honeymoon. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to bring in mine. Shoot it from there. He says, he says, my camera, just shoot it from there. So I did. My husband went back to the hotel room. He took the tape out. He left the door open. He says, I wanted it to get, aired out. He says, it's very musty. He says, I ran my finger in it. He says, it is wet. I says, yeah, but I don't know if Splash Mountain could have done something or just the fact alone, it is the humidity problem. Okay. But it is. Because even if you take your cell phone out today, and you go out of the resort, you ever notice how foggy it is? That's the humidity. It's the mildew, and then you don't want the camera getting mildew. So my husband says, that's why I opened the door and I left everything. He says, it's all on the table, but it's open. I said, all right, I didn't feel too bad about it. And with that, I came back to the room. The camera was working fine by the next day. But as the years progressed, I did see that the quality, like I could be watching something. Now, in the darkness on those types of video cameras back then, in the darkness, you would see the grain. Okay, it's not as sharp as digital is today. So you would see the grain. But I was seeing the grain sometimes during the day. I went, uh-oh. Okay, 14 years that camera lasted. So that was my baby. Anyhow, getting back to the videotape. So that was my videotape. You can see how thin the videotape is compared to my husband's. Then we transferred everything. Now my husband went after that and purchased the late 90s, early 2000s. He says, there's a new kind of video camera out. He says, oh, really? He says, yeah. He says, it takes mini DVDs. Okay, mini DVDs. And this is the, looks just like a CD, looks just like a CD, but it's a mini DVD. And this is what the disc is. These were adorable. Mini DVDs, adorable. You get the same time as a regular DVD, 74 minutes. This is 1.4 gigabytes, as a matter of fact, DVD-R. So we were doing that. You know, I have quite a few of those. So those are easy just to pop into the into the DVD player and just watch. And then of course, you know, we have the regular DVD sizes. So I went through the whole catalog yesterday. I started this journey at about 9 a.m., had a cup of tea, sat, and I went, okay. And then I just got involved in all the memories and all the, you know, and then I did watch. I found part 1 tape of the 1994, and we went to Universal Studios, then we went to SeaWorld, then we went to SeaWorld a few times during the years, but more so than Universal, because I think Universal we only did the one time. And we saw, and then sure enough, that video got to the Splash Mountain, and I went, oh God. And then, you know, just as we make the turn in Splash Mountain, my husband, the battery's going, and I hear him saying this on it. The battery's going, I'm going to change it. And then you see the film clip as a continuation, you know, because he has to turn the camera back on. And then it just started rolling. And that was the last drop at Splash Mountain. And this was our second time only being on it. So, what memories, folks. But from there on in, you see, you know, like I looked at I sat and watched the rest of the tape, and sometimes for a split second it would come back to normal, and then all of a sudden it would just go fluey again. So the recording heads were just not working at that point. And I do have, like I said, I do have to tell my husband that in the middle of that video, Big Thunder Railroad, because we did film that, and I guess all the jumping and the jilting, those cameras were not really made for that back then. So that brings up a lot, you know. I mean, I'm okay with it now, 28, 29 years later, but still, you know, I look at it as if it was shot yesterday. And the quality of it is great because we really don't watch it that much. Oh my goodness. But anyhow, it was a nice day. Bob Iger's situation, there is a thing that's going around that, you know, because of the interview the other day on CNBC, I guess people are really now getting wind of it. I mean, I had wind of it because I watched it when it actually happened. He did mention that during the interview, he did mention that ESPN, they were trying to do something else good with ESPN, and that was their biggest money maker. This is what he said in the video. But now WDWNT, who I absolutely love and trust, had posted a video that Bob Iger was discussing of making huge changes to the company's ESPN and, you know, Hulu and, you know, Disney Plus, but he was also thinking of selling those off. Now, I don't know where that came from, but that wasn't stated in the interview, because the interview stated that there's big things going to happen. Listen, I told you people, there is a method to their madness, number one. Number two, I've been saying this for years. They change from day to day on how they do things. Okay? And this just is, to me, this is a perfect example. Now, did he say it? I don't know if he said it, but you know what? In the back of my mind, never say never. Anything gonna happen. So right away, you know, and I, you know, of course, I don't know why people have to step on it. You just let the post go and just let people say what they want. I says, you know, it figures, but never say never. You never know what could happen. And of course somebody said, oh, that can't happen. That's not going to happen. Yeah, okay. All right, listen. Shut your mouth, okay? Just let the post go and move on. Let the post go and move on. And I had to write back, and I did. And I wrote back and I says, well, you know what? I'm going to keep my opinions the way they are, the way I see fit. And that's what I'm saying. So, in other words, I could say whatever I want. You can't. This is my opinion. It's my opinion. So I moved on from that. So getting rid of the Disney company was also mentioned. And I says, listen, I said, if that was another thing I put in a post. I said, if anything like this happens, I said, because some things like this are usually said, maybe not so much, but it does tend to change. I said, so if that does happen, I am going to have a good laugh, let me tell you. I will have a good laugh. You know? Anyway, let me get going because I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to get ready to do my thing. I have some more to say, but I'll save it for another day. Have a wonderful Monday. God bless you. I'm going to go out for a while. It's going to be 91 today, so I already got my air on, trying to beat the heat a little bit in here, and usually that works. So we're going to see. I'm going to have my tea, finish my tea. I'm going to read my sale paper, newspaper, because I want to see tonight any of the sales that are going on. I make a shopping list for, you know, groceries for the week. That's just my thing to do. Love to all. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you so much for liking my past videos from yesterday. I didn't even speak of them. I will be speaking of them because I'm not done yet speaking about my memories. Thank you so much for enjoying everything. Love to all. God bless you. Have a wonderful Monday.